Hello, this is Dr. Peter Swanz with Vital Force Naturopathy and drswanz.com. I want to talk a little bit about the COVID vaccine and some of the information that's come out so far. And I really want to make this disclaimer that, I am not pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. My children have been vaccinated. I've talked about this before. The important thing about a vaccine is we want it to be safe and we want it to be effective, and that's what we're that's what we're striving for always with medicine. The FDA has set the required efficacy for the COVID vaccine at 50%. Okay. And I'm going to quote here, to ensure that a widely deployed COVID-19 vaccine is effective, the primary efficacy endpoint estimate for a placebo-controlled efficacy trial should be at least 50%. And the statistical success criterion should be that the lower bound of the appropriately alpha-adjusted confidence interval around the primary efficacy endpoint estimate is greater than 30%. So greater than 30%. And this is from the Industry Guide for Development and Licensure of the COVID Vaccine in June 2020 on the FDA's website. And I'm going to post all of these links. So what's important to note here is that under this FDA recommendation, which is being incorporated this way because of the emergency use authorization, it's allowing for clinical endpoints to be the deciding factor for the vaccine, not immune endpoints, right? So immune endpoints are actual markers of immunity in the individual receiving the vaccine. So if we said we wanted a 50% efficacy rate in an individual receiving the vaccine based on their immune endpoints, we would give the vaccine to 10 people, and at least 5 of those 10 people would have to show antibody production for the vaccine, right? That is not what's happening when we're talking about this statistical endpoint, the primary endpoint. What the FDA has said is appropriate is we're looking for actual cases in people that were vaccinated and not vaccinated, right? So recently, I think a lot of us heard this, the Pfizer vaccine was said to have a greater than 90% effective rate in the study, right? And this is the British Medical Journal published that, and that sounds awesome. But what does that actually mean? What are they talking about if we're not talking about how it's working in individuals, and instead we're talking about it in this collective group, this cohort? So here's what they did. They went and looked for the cases of COVID-19 1 week after the second dose of the vaccine. And they looked at the cases of COVID-19 in both the placebo group, who didn't get the vaccine, as well as the vaccine group. And this was a lot of people, and this was great. There were 20,000 people that were given the placebo. And in the placebo group, 86 cases of COVID-19 were found 1 week after the administration of the second dose. 20,000 people were given the vaccine, and 1 week after the second dose, there were only 8 cases of COVID-19. 86 in the placebo, 8 in the vaccine group. So that's 94 total cases. 8 happened in the vaccine group. That's a 91.5% improvement in the vaccine group compared to what happened in the placebo group, right? That's the 90%. That's the greater than 90% efficacy that was being described when these results, these early stage results, were published. And that's what is acceptable now, according to the FDA, to show how the vaccine's working, is in this group study. Now let's talk a little bit more about these numbers without just focusing on that exciting, it reduced it from 86 in the placebo to 8 in the vaccine group. Let's talk about it a little bit more. In the placebo group, there's an infection rate of 0.43%, right? 86 cases out of 20,000. And that's pretty much right in alignment with what we've been observing with COVID in the general population, right? It's less than 1% of infectious rate. That's what we're dealing with. The vaccine group, only 8 cases in 20,000, had an infection rate of 0.04%. So that's an improvement for sure over the 0.43, right? Went to 0.04 from 0.43. But what does that mean in real numbers? There's a term, it's called the number needed to vaccinate, the NNTV number. That's the number of vaccines that have to be given to stop one person from developing an infection. And based on these numbers, these early numbers in this trial, the number needed to vaccinate is 256. And what that means is we have to give the vaccine to 256 people before one case of COVID-19 is prevented. 255 people need to get the vaccine, and it won't make a difference for them. They weren't going to get the COVID-19 infection anyway. It's that 256 person that it looks like maybe it will stop them based on these numbers. Is that a concern? I don't know. I don't know. It seems like we have to vaccinate a lot of people to stop one infection. I think that's a good thing for the vaccine manufacturers, right? For the doctors or the offices that may be administering this and getting paid by the government to do that. But for 255 people, what might they experience from this? Not a real benefit. We don't know yet because we haven't been looking at the immune markers. How does this vaccine actually work in the people we give it to? Are they creating an antibody response? How's that sustaining over time? We should get these numbers and have information about this from the data that's being collected, but based on the early studies, that's not what's being discussed, and that's not what's being looked at, and it's not what is going to be required for the vaccine to come to market. And that creates a little bit of a concern for me because I want to know how the vaccine works in the people who are given it. Now, there have been adverse effects, and these are mRNA vaccines. So what have we seen? There's been injection site pain, fatigue, myalgia, and arthralgia, so bone and muscle aches, headaches, erythema, and redness at the site of injection. These were the most common adverse effects in the early analysis. It has been noted in one of the studies that the adverse reactions increased in frequency and severity with the second vaccine dose. So the subsequent administration of the vaccine seemed to make the adverse effects a little bit worse. We need to keep thinking about this. We need to keep talking about this. This is an unprecedented situation in the development of vaccines in the U.S. First off, this is an entirely new type of biological agent. It's an mRNA vaccine. That's, we don't have any that are being given on a regular basis to anybody in the U.S. now. So this is a totally new type of vaccine. And two, the companies that are furthest along, Moderna and Pfizer, are both asking for an emergency use authorization from the FDA, which will allow these vaccines to come to market without requiring the companies to jump through all of the normal hoops that other vaccines have had to jump through. And, this is just, we have to be aware of this and kind of what we're getting ourselves into. The FDA's Vaccine and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee is expected to meet on December 10th. So this is coming up, and they're going to review all of the trial data up to this point before they will grant the emergency use authorization to Pfizer or Moderna. And they should at that time then post all of the data that's been gathered publicly. So that'll give us, a lot more to look at with the actual numbers, but we have to be just cautious when we read things like, oh, it's more than 90% effective. We need to have an understanding of what that actually means for the people who may be getting the vaccine, because that's what we want to do. We all want to help, support each other, wear our mask, practice social distancing, take your basic immune supports, practice good hygiene. There's so much that we can do to help and support each other, and hopefully a safe and effective vaccine will become part of that discussion too about a reasonable option. So I just wanted to share where things are at, what I've been thinking about looking at this stuff, and I hope you find this interesting and are happy to share it with your friends and family. So thanks so much for watching. You can always check me out and follow me online at drswanz.com/connect, and I will keep you updated as things unfold. Thanks so much. Peace, health, love.